Recording in progress.
Oje changi kompam yutopsho. Okay, let's do that. I'm just going to switch this off so you don't get an echo. Sorry. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen gamje dewatang dewe jupatang dempa jujig Dungal tang, dungal chichu tang trawa juchik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawa juchik, nearing chaktang ni tang trawe tang chempo la ni pa juche. So good morning. If you just came in, even if we are half a group today, it doesn't really matter. The people will catch up, I'm sure, by listening. And it's just one of those days, I think. But I just want to say that what I'm going to do, because I find this teaching very deep and very profound, and Dzongsa Khyentse hasn't done enough explaining. You know, he did a very short teaching, and even he says in the end, I may not do justice to the meaning of this prayer because there's so many aspects of it. You've got to see it really, as I told you last time, with a very, very broad mind. You've got to see this teaching with a very broad mind, okay? And so what I'm doing with it is I'm going to take Dzongsa's commentary, but I'm also going to go to my go-to teacher, who's always Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, because he's given so much, not teaching specifically on this, but when you take some of the verses, there's all his teaching is there. So I'm going to take him and really use him to add in meaning and depth to the whole prayer. So you'll probably find me like going to this and this and this. You'll have to be very patient with me, okay, because I want to really do justice to the meaning of this prayer, because to even begin to understand the expansiveness of this treasure prayer of Yeshe Tsogyal, discovered by the Terton Pema Lingpa, we have to understand the full, unbelievable, over 200-year life story of Yeshe Tsogyal. She was in Tibet for over 200 years. Can you imagine? I mean, we tired after a month. She went on and on and on. And otherwise, if we don't, we might mistake the prayer for the aspiration of an ordinary being rather than a summary of the whole Dharma, which is really important. So before we enter the prayer, let's just look at what she tells her grieving when she's leaving after about 210 years of teaching all these people. She's standing and leaving her disciples, and they're all weeping and crying. And I want to read you what she says, because then you can really get the full picture of who she is, and that she is Guru Rinpoche in feminine form. So she says to all of them, they're weeping and they're gazing at her, and she's about to take off. And she stayed all these years after Guru Rinpoche left. And this is what she says to them. Listen carefully, you people of my community. Lend your ear and mind to the sound. There's no need for despond. Take heart. Since life is a conditioned state, it is transitory. Since the objective world is light form, it is insubstantial. Since the path is delusive, it has no validity. Since samsara is emptiness, it is unreal. Since the mind is its conflicting thoughts, it has no foundation. I've seen nothing whatsoever that is ultimately real. You faithful brothers and sisters assembled here, pray unequivocally to me, your mother, and I will bless you with the pure pleasure of dynamic space. Same with you. You just call to Yeshe Tsogyal and you'll get your answer straight away. There can never be any meeting or parting. Those forming karmic connection with me automatically have my guidance, and others will be saved by my impartial, compassionate emanations. Your mother is free of the anxiety of death and transition, so there's no reason for sadness, brothers and sisters. She says, I've completed direct conversion on my circle on this plane. According to the prophecy of the Venerable Sri Origin, that's Padmasambhava, in this life, 200 years were allotted for conversion. Not only 200, but more have passed, and I have sustained Tibet for a very long time. I just wrote in the book, wow, because I was thinking to myself, how in heaven's name did Tibet get to the point when they had all of this to actually deteriorate so the Chinese took over and they weren't able to do what they needed to do? It's actually unbelievable. But anyway, she says, I've sustained. At the age of 13, I became the emperor's queen. At the age of 16, my guru's compassion embraced me. Reaching 20, I gained full initiation and practiced austerities. At 30, I gained realization and worked for others' welfare. At 40, I identified with my guru's mind. At 50, I vanquished devils and defended the teaching. At 60, I propagated the scriptures and enlarged the community. At 70, I discovered the nature of reality. When I reached 80, my guru departed for the southwest. At 90, I saw the face of reality in its essence. At 100, my knowledge reached optimal fullness. At 120, I became the emperor's priestess. At 130, I traveled through the whole of Tibet. At 150, I concealed treasures and worked for others. When I was 160, King Mutri Tsempo died. That was the son of Trison Detsen, who was then the king. And at 170, I liberated my remaining disciples. So all of her disciples were liberated, okay? I wish we'd been one of them. At 180, I projected apparitional forms in Lodra. At 190, I met my only elder sister, Queen of Siddhas, and received the supreme precept, attaining the city of long life. Now, the marks of rebirth and death spontaneously dissolve. Now, 211 years have passed in this embodiment, 211 years. Surely that's sufficient protection for Tibet. And surely all the gods and men are grateful, my partners in happiness and sorrow. Now when I am gone, it will seem that we have departed. We've parted, but do not be depressed, my friends. Pray with penetration and concentration. Immerse yourselves in the pure potential of Dzogchen, for there's no other way to transcend the misery of existence. Instruction in Dzogchen is the heart blood of Ojim Pema. He gave it to me, and now I must transmit it to you. Practice it and attain Siddhi. That's your real powers that you develop. You may transmit it to all suitable recipients, but deny it to those who lack the capacity to contain it. Swear to keep out of the hands of thou violators and seal it away from opinionated people. Now that's from the Sky Dancer of Keith Dowman, that he published that poem. I think it's very, very, very beautiful. And I think it really is a message to all of us, just as her prayer is, because it's unbelievable that we've got this. And I'm very happy if any of you butt in, especially when we do the prayer, because it's our own putting together. And I'm really sorry a lot of people aren't here this morning, because it's our putting together which really helps us to understand this particular prayer, okay? And I think also just to understand that in a chapter by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche in the book, there's a book, Dakini Teachings. It's another amazing book where all the teachings are in. And it's fascinating advice from Guru Rinpoche to Yeshe Tsogyal. Now, remember, she didn't need any of this. She was already enlightened, but she stages the whole thing so that we can get it. So we've got it all. And I just wish that Tibet could go back. I know Tibet will not go back to what it was before, because I think it was too isolated. And because of the Chinese invading Tibet, so all these masters left Tibet and came to the West. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got it. So I wonder how it will end in the end. If anybody has any clue, it would be good to know. Because I wonder how it will end in the end, you know, whether Tibet will go back to being this enlightened society instead of being persecuted for everything they do in the Dharma. And to me, it's also amazing that Guru Rinpoche knew how it was going to be. So these Dharmas can never, ever be lost, okay? And Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche in the Dakini Teachers discusses the Dharmas, and I wrote, absolutely mind-blowing when you really understand what these Dharmas are. Because, he says, because of the changes and fluctuations in world history, each terton would appear in designated times to benefit beings facing particular difficulties. So these were specific practices suited to that time in which they were to be revealed. And they were freshly endowed with special qualities. I mean, amazing when you really think of it. They are a method for accomplishment appropriate for each generation, therefore appropriate for a period of time, and for the individual person who meets them. Fresh teachings to be practiced by destined people, which is unbelievable. He adds that the new Dharmas have even greater blessing, and that most people have a fondness for novelty. It's more interesting. So I just wanted to say that, and then we're going straight on to the prayer. But what I really want you to understand is how it is a real privilege to meet with these teachings. It's not just an ordinary, it's not just something that comes from somewhere. You have to have merit to meet with it. You have to have merit to meet with these teachings. If you haven't got the merit, even if you meet with them, they'll mean nothing to you. But it's a very interesting thing, because people who have the merit will get it, and they'll get absolutely everything. And I want to just go to the special qualities of Vajrayana. Sorry, do you want to say
something to you? Sorry, I can't put my camera on. I really got no megabytes.
Okay.
You know, it was something amazing that we managed to meet up with Namkha Norbu.
Right.
We didn't know what it was about. And what's amazing is we got that Mandarava teaching. We've been practicing it, not really knowing what we were doing. And then we slowly moved from sort of the practice itself, just to the mantras, because, you know, there are different levels of this practice. You can go into a very short form of it. Absolutely. And that's what we do every day. And then he gave us all the energy work. We've got all the salungs, we've got everything. And suddenly, in the last few days, I unpacked all our Dharma stuff. We're having a complete flush out here. We've gone through a whole transformation. We've discovered things that we don't know anything about. Where did we get these empowerments? But anyway, this whole Mandarava, because it's connected with what you're talking about, has suddenly, all the energy work that he gave us, it suddenly clicked for me. I think for Ron long ago, but for me, it all fell into place. And wherever we've had to go, we've landed up going. Like we listened to Yeshe Namkha the other day. I didn't want to. I'm not connected with him. But he explained the inner workings of energy, which I didn't, you know, not in Dharma terms. It was the most amazing thing. And I connected that with the Mandarava. And it just all, whoop, came together. So I'm just confirming what you're saying for everybody's benefit, that this really works.
Divine. And you know, that's what I want. I want people to give their experience. I know the two of you have had these amazing experiences. And it's funny because those energy channels, I have never been able, you know, when I was first in the Buddha Dharma, I asked Lama Yeshe to give them to me and he wouldn't. So obviously that was not going to be the way that I was going to go. So I read about them all the time and everything, but I'm happy because, you know, I think if you actually are able to skip and understand the Dzogchen, then that comes into place automatically. I think that the Dzogchen of the Ati Yoga is right at the top. But that's amazing. And you know, it's so funny because you two had that connection with Namkha Nobu, and I told you that I arranged to go to, what's the island we used to go? I can't think of its name. Reunion. I arranged to go to Reunion to see Namkha Nobu. He was coming there, and I decided I'm going. And such a strange thing happened. He got sick. Okay, so he never came. I went, but he never came. And then so strange because it wasn't for me to meet him. I met him in the sleep state once, and I had an amazing experience with him, but that was it. I wasn't to meet him in person. And it's so interesting because, you know, they asked me when I was there, everybody was so disappointed he let them down at the last. They asked me to teach. The one guy knew me and they asked me to teach all these people, and I was very reluctant because they were all French speaking. And then I said, okay, I'll teach what I can. So I taught, but I had a translator. You know, I tell you this funny story because I had a translator who was translating my English, and I would give 2 sentences and he'd give 300 sentences, you know. So God, and I did understand a bit of the French, but then I lost it. I was concentrating on my English and teaching all these people. There were all these people coming for Namkha Nobu. What a strange, weird experience, Sharon, but I was never to meet him. Only once in the sleep state where he gave me an empowerment. And maybe that was all I needed from him. I don't know, you know, I really don't know, but that was the funniest thing to be there.
Can I tell you something else that came to mind so many times? I don't even think I've really discussed it with Ron, but because of your Vajrasattva work that you started, it woke up something in me as well. We've got a practice, Vajrasattva practice, and the 25 spaces of Samanta Bahadra. Now, this is really amazing stuff. So we started practicing, and it's like an hour and a half practice.
Wow.
We've been doing it for days now, and bringing it to mind, and it comes so strongly to mind when you've finished moving and you've got yourself a bit of space. We're going to come around, and I'm going to go through this practice with you, and you will receive the entire thing from us because we are totally versed in this. But it's a full Dzogchen practice, and what it's got in it, I'll send you a cover of the actual booklet. It's got the full, well, not the full, but it'll give you an introduction to the 100 deities, because the mantras are there, and we will sound it all.
Wonderful. I'm looking so forward to it. I'm going to dump everything once I've moved, but it's only going to happen.
One day. Just give me, I need a day.
No, fantastic. And I think this is so exciting. And you two come in with these prayers because I brought lots of teaching in that will be interesting for all of you. But what Tulku Urgent says, the special qualities of Vajrayana are Guru Rinpoche's one sentence, and you should all write this sentence down. He says, to ascend with the view, to ascend with the view, while descending with the conduct. Now that's perhaps one of the most, to ascend with the view while descending with the conduct. It's all over Guru Rinpoche's, all over Tulku Urgent's teachings. He brings that very, very, very often. Now, what I want to say about that is that you have to go very, very high to get the real view. So you're ascending with the view, but if you ascend with the view and you're not in touch with the conduct on the ground, then what's the use? So this is really, really important. The sentence, sure, to ascend with the view and descend with the conduct. In other words, you are of no use. I was talking to my son last night, and he goes to me, "You don't understand, Ma." You know, it's just me. "You don't understand, Ma." Okay, well, I don't understand. But the thing is, I did understand. I understood what he was creating. But he doesn't think I can understand because he's got his set ideas, spiritual ideas, but his own ideas. And it's very, very interesting because you have to be able to understand people if you really want to incorporate the A to Z of the Dharma. It is useless to be up there with the view and you're in this life. You've got to be able to translate what you've got, descend with the conduct. It's a very important thing. But Bern, if you would, could we go to verse 1 of the prayer, just the first verse? We'll do each verse. And there's so much teaching for it. It's amazing. So I want you to, if you take the prayer down, to write in lots of things. So let's go here, the prayer of Yeshe Tsogyal, okay? So this is where we're not doing, when she comes to Gungtang Pass in Manyul, the great master Padmasambhava was about to depart the southwestern land of the Rakshasas, and Yeshe Tsogyal prostrated, circumambulated him, and placing his head, uttered his feet on her head, uttered the following prayer. This first one, I'm going to just say this first one in Tibetan and then in English. Maha Guru Chinlapchi Dakya Tsera Tamche Du Shinkam Dakpa Podrang Du Lama Dralme Tempar Shore. Okay, and what that means was, great Guru, bless me that in all my future lives, in the palaces of the pure realms, I may commit myself to you and never be parted from you. Just read that to yourselves and then we're going to talk about it, okay? Now, one of the things, let's read the English. Okay, then take it off, Bern, then I'm going to talk about it. Now, Zongsa says, the first part of the prayer is the monlam. If you really look at the word monlam, he says, when it's translated as prayer, it's not a good translation. He says, more would be your aspiration. You know, what is the purpose of your prayer, okay? And the second part of her prayer is about the dedication to the specific cause that she's trying to teach. Now, if you look at this, Zongsa keeps saying all the time, if you give a prayer from that level, the prayer must be achievable. It must be achievable. Otherwise, what's the point if we can't achieve it? So he says, whenever you begin the prayer with Maha Guru Chinlapji, it's saying, great Guru, please bless me. But he says, Chinlap, to translate it as blessing is not a brilliant thing, okay? Because it's more than a blessing. It's more than a blessing, Shane, there's Corin. It's more than a blessing, because a blessing is just something you think you get, but it's almost like an entitlement. He talks about entitlement. Corin, you'll have to catch up in the beginning. But he calls it entitlement, okay? The blessing is, so he goes, if you are the Duke of Nottingham's daughter, he says, then you're entitled to to get from the Duke of Nottingham his title, his money, his everything. You're entitled to. That blessing is much more than just bless you, my child. It's the pouring in, it's entitling you. And he says that sentence, Maha Guru Chinlapji, should be on every single verse. And he says it is in every single verse, but we, they don't put it obviously because you can't keep repeating it. But it's that is your commitment and your dedication. He says, you could use this at the beginning of each section. May such and such be accomplished. Now she's giving this so that we can accomplish it. She says, the quintessential to the whole prayer is that sentence. Maha Guru, give me Chinlapji, give me your blessing, give me the entitlement. You're entitled to get this. Why? Not because you're special, but because you are Buddha inside you. You have got the nature of mind inside you. Therefore, you are entitled to get this. So is the insect. So are my doggies. We're all entitled to get this because we have Buddha nature, and that entitles us. He says, in Buddhism, there's no external force. There's no God in the sky that's giving you a blessing. It's all internal. The real blessing is one's own nature of mind. And he says on Guntang Peak, a lot of teaching actually happened. And he gives the example of a dirty dish. Now imagine you had a dirty dish, okay, and you couldn't wash the dish. You'd have to throw out every dish that you had. You'd have to throw it out, okay? But because it's washable, you could dirty the dish, but inherently that dish is clean. So that's the blessing. Inherently, we are beautiful. We are Buddha. We are everything. And that's inherently. So we can have that complete blessing. And it's really, really, really important that we understand we are inherently clean. And so like the dish is clean, you trust when you dirty the dish that you're going to go and wash it. You're going to go and wash it and it'll clean. Our Buddha nature, when we trust that inherently it's clean, we can get that blessing anytime, any place. He says, your mind is the real blessing. It's the innate guru being projected externally. And the historical Guru Rinpoche is one reference. He says, but that is thinking very small and very limited. And he says, when she says, may I never be separated from the Guru, he says, this is her prayer. And he says, but what we ask for must be achievable. Otherwise, the composer is deceiving us. He says, how can you say, may I never be separated from her? But he says, but at that moment, he's about to go on his horse into the other dimension. So what do you mean, may I never be separated from you? He says, that's where you get the real meaning, because he says the Maha Guru is your mind, your nature of mind. And the Chinlap, the blessing, is we can never be separated from it. We can never be separated from that mind. We have it, but we can't use its full capacity. Like Sharon saying, she got all these things, she didn't really understand them, she didn't get them, which often happens to us. And then suddenly you get it because you inherently have that blessing. We need never be separated from our nature of mind, so it's achievable. He says we could do vast things technologically. He says, like I've got this friend Siri on my technology, he says, and Siri tells me what to do all the time. Whoever thought of that? Oh, don't even tell me about that. He says, we know what Siri is, we know the technology, but we don't know our treasure minds. We don't know that we've even got it. He says, you may have to have the golden nugget, but if we don't know it's gold, what is the use? So the blessing is really the one, the empowerment from our own Mahaguru within us, okay? And this is, and we have to be committed. She says, may I always be committed to it. In the prayer, she says, just let me get the prayer. She says, dear Guru, bless me that in my future lives, in the palaces of the pure realms, I may commit myself to you and never be parted from you. Now, what does that actually mean? It's our aspiration. That's what we've got, our aspiration that we have. And the commitment is so important. And I was thinking to myself, you often just, I've been in such a rush and had so many things on my plate all at the same time. And so sometimes I kind of think, oh, you know, today I'll give it a miss. I'll just go and do all the things I have to do. But I know that I can never, ever, ever, ever do that. Even if I'm catching a plane, the practice goes with me onto the plane. It's your commitment. And a lot of people go, I'm tired today, I won't do it. I don't feel like being committed. But there are no breaks from your commitment. You can't have a break. Because if you break the commitment, you're breaking that absolute one that you're getting, that chin-lap blessing that you're getting if you break your commitment. So what you commit to, you've got to keep doing that commitment. It's really, really, really important. And I think it's extremely important. And let's go to the second verse, Bern, and just give us the second verse. And I won't do it in Tibetan, we'll just do it in English. Okay, there's the second verse. With never fluctuating devotion, like the commitment, with never fluctuating devotion, may I joyfully carry out your wishes and receive the transmission of your nectar-like blessings, the essence of your mind, profound realization. Just read it by yourselves. Such a deep prayer. You actually don't know what's in that, okay? And, okay, thanks, Boone. So Zongsa says, we have to please the Guru, okay? The Guru is also your nature of mind and the Guru outside. He says, by practicing and by offering your service, your physical things, your practice. This is so important because whatever you're doing, Mimi, you moving, offer your new home, offer what you've got, offer your new environment to bring to people. That's how you make that unbelievable commitment with never fluctuating devotion. May I joyfully carry out your wishes and receive the transmission of your nectar-like blessings, the essence of your mind, profound realization. But what is really important is that you do the offering of what you've got, because it's always got to be a two-way process. You offering something, you get something. You offering nothing, and you start praying, please, I want this and I want that. What are you giving in return? You've got to really have it, and you've got to have that never fluctuating devotion, passion. We bring about the merging with the inner Guru, and then the blessing helps us to bring us into alignment with the nature of the three kayas, the Dharma kaya, the Sambhogha kaya, and the Niyamana kaya. And he says the transmission is like a vase pouring into you, which then brings you profound realization. There are no words to describe this. It's awakening the intrinsic awareness and realizing. Now, in your practices and in what you do with the Dharma, there are the three things that we look at. Firstly, understanding. That's so important, because you need to understand the Dharma. That's your first thing. If you don't understand it, you cannot go on. So if you don't understand it, you must find somebody that can help you. I'm always willing to help if I'm able to, but you need the full understanding both of what you're doing and what the Dharma means and everything else, then from the understanding, you go to the experiencing. The experiencing will happen, a glimpse, another glimpse. Somebody will be there and it'll stimulate something in you. The experiencing of what you are understanding. It starts with little glimpse, okay? Then the third one is the realization. So it's understanding, experiencing, and then realizing. And Guru Rinpoche, in one of the prayers that I do, says, when your understanding is perfect, your realization will definitely come into fruition. But if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the understanding, it's really, really difficult. Now, what I've taken from this incredible article, I took all the articles I could give them to you, and I've taken this real beautiful article. It's called The True View by Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, and it's got amazing things in it. And he says here, devotion and compassion are the greatest techniques, the most eminent means. Devotion and compassion. He says they are 100 times better than meditating on deities and reciting mantras. In the great perfection teachings, he said, we generally say that only unfabricated, natural compassion and devotion are important. But we must begin by contriving trust and compassion. You know, in the West, we have such difficulty with devotion because those ordinary minds are always critically evaluating teachers and masters and Dharma friends, and this one isn't this, because we use that all the time, okay? And it's really, really important because we need to begin by making up the trust and the devotion. And then once we contrive it, then it starts becoming naturally in us. He says, though devotion and compassion are already present within non-dual knowing, your own essence in the beginning, you need to fabricate the feelings of compassion and devotion. I think it's very important because natural, unfabricated devotion or uncontrived compassion do not unfold immediately. Gives us a break. Some of us automatically, you meet these amazing, amazing masters and your devotion is right there. But for most of us, we're skeptical. We're skeptical. We don't just come and make ourselves like that. We're very, very skeptical about, we really are skeptical about, you know, how we devote ourselves to everything. We really are. He says, as you become increasingly stable in non-dual knowing, when you're not working with your ordinary intellectual mind, then he says you will naturally feel compassion and devotion towards all being, thinking. Sentient beings are unaware of this most precious nature, which is like Buddhahood in the palm of one's hands. Devotion is accompanied by thoughts like, how fantastic to be able to cut through the very base and root of confusion. It's incredible, this perfection of all virtue, this exhaustion of all faults. Nothing is superior to this non-dual knowing. Thus, you gain trust. It's very interesting. He says, true devotion and compassion are like the summer warmth that melts the ice of winter. Looking into the essence of devotion, you meet naked knowing directly. So when you've got that beautiful devotion, doesn't only have to be for a high master. When you've got the devotion for someone that is giving you the Dharma, someone that is sharing things for you, right then you've got naked knowing directly. And that is why devotion is so precious and important, he says. Once you realize emptiness truly, you will naturally have this compassion and this devotion. And you'll think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could realize this. It's absolutely amazing. That's the devotion. And then he does another teaching, and then I'll stop and open up. He does another teaching on understanding, experiencing, and realizing. You know, when I need any teaching, I just go, for example, in all my files, there's a folder of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche's articles and teachings and stuff I've written about and everything. It's about this thick. I just go like this to find what I need for the prayer, and here it is. It's absolutely amazing because there's so much teaching. He says, Buddhist practice involves 3 steps known as intellectual understanding, experience, and realization. He says intellectual understanding occurs when, for instance, we hear that emptiness, which is the meaning empty cognizance, is our nature. Now we think, what is this? He says, the mental idea we get of this is called understanding. So people might say to me, what do you mean emptiness? What do you mean? What do you mean empty cognizance? What does it mean? And you get an idea, you get words, but you haven't a clue what you're going to experience. You just get words, and from the words, you get a real understanding of what it's all about, okay? And he says, in the case of experience, we are told how to recognize emptiness so we can see exactly how this empty cognizance is. We have a taste of it, maybe no more than a glimpse, but nevertheless, an experience of what is called recognizing mind essence. Now, you might get that experience, you might just get it suddenly. You're just somewhere and you're having a hard time, and in the middle of it, you suddenly get that idea of absolute pure empty cognizance. You just know what it is. That's when you move from understanding to experience. And if you read a lot and you study a lot, you go on to the experience of it. He says, when this glimpse is followed by training in repeatedly recognizing the nature of mind and avoid being carried away by the thoughts about it, we gradually go more and more used to this experience. In this case, by recognizing the empty nature, we are disengaging from its expression, the stream of deluded thinking. And each time, whatever's expressed, whatever thought you've got, actually goes back dissolves into the state of awareness, progress is made. So when you realize, for example, that you're sitting, and now I'm thinking about this person that really hurt me yesterday, okay, then I think I'm just going to let it go, but then I go back and I'm thinking again about this person, and then I bring my mind back and I'm going again. I'm fixated on it. I'm analyzing it all the time. That is not having understanding, because understanding says the minute you create it, it dissolves back into its original state. Once you know this, you'll start experiencing it, and then it really, really dissolves into the essence. And he says, each time that the expression dissolves back into the state of awareness, progress is made, and finally realization occurs. Ultimate realization is when delusion has totally collapsed and there's no reoccurrence of discursive thoughts whatsoever. He says thoughts are like clouds and can vanish, just as clouds naturally disperse into space. The expression, meaning thoughts are like clouds, while Rigpa is like the sunlit space. He says, I use the metaphor of sunlit space to illustrate that space and awareness are indivisible. You do not accomplish or create the sunlit sky. He says, we cannot push the clouds away, but we can allow the clouds to gradually dissolve until finally all the clouds have vanished. When it becomes easier to recognize, know, when recognition is self-sustained, then it can be called realization. Ultimate realization occurs when there's no trace of the clouds whatsoever. They've all dissolved. That is when you really, really, really are ready to let go of all these things in your life. Whatever's bugging you, whatever's hurting you, whatever's driving you dilly. Like this morning, I was thinking to myself, my son's leaving to go away now, and he doesn't realize that in this house, you can hear every single sound. Could you hear the noise in my house? Don't think you can, which is interesting. That's what I realized, because if the audio is off, you can't hear. But there's been a hell of a racket in my house all morning while I've been talking. He's just left now. I can hear him leaving, and he doesn't know. And I kept going back to the thought of, doesn't he realize that if you shout downstairs, that it reverberates in this modern house with wooden floors and, no capacity? And I keep going back to the thought, but now he's gone and you couldn't hear it in the first place. So it didn't really matter. That's how it is with most of our things. You all understand? Most of our things just dissolve. So why do we keep going back to them? Why do we drive ourselves nuts? We want to go to realization, to know and to understand. Okay, any questions, anything else before we go on to the next verse? But these verses are very profound. From that, I took that out of that verse. With never fluctuating devotion, man, joyfully carry out your wishes and receive the transmission of your nectar-like blessings, the essence of your mind, profound realization. And I really, Zongsa didn't say a lot about it, but I wanted you to understand that if you practice enough doing it, it eventually goes from understanding to experiencing to realization. Questions, comments, any of you? Yay, Nick, I'm so happy when I can see you even today. Any comments? Do you get what I'm saying?
I thought it was nice to explain a lot about realization. That was one of my questions to begin with. But I was actually thinking, in terms of dual intellectual realization that comes with the three aspects that you explained, and the actual true realization that would be a non-dual, non-intellectual, I don't know if you could call it Rigpa or Sambhogakaya, but is that actually something you could call it permanent, or would that be permanent?
The noise, you interrupt. Sorry.
Is it something that you would carry over with you if you don't get enlightened on one life? Would that be something that you carry with you?
For sure. And you know what? You see, for me, what I do, it's so interesting, is I study in order to teach, because I don't have that any realization that it can go through me like that. Sometimes it does, a little thing comes through. So I see my teaching as a grand rehearsal for my coming to terms with my true nature. But the bottom line is that if you get that understanding, there is so much available. When I started, there wasn't anything like YouTubes and things like that you could go to. There's so much available. And those of you that don't feel like you can see the nature of mind and things like that, go to your understanding, the first category, okay? And once you have a full understanding, go there, Yeshe. Once you have a full understanding, then you can really move towards experiencing, because once that understanding comes, it's absolutely amazing how you suddenly go, oh yes, I remember that. You just see something or hear something, and it starts to go to experiencing it. And very often the experience can be in your sleep state. Because what happens to me, like I always say, I say to my husband, he wants me to watch this thing called The Ambassador on Netflix. Okay, I'm happy to watch, but I usually do other things while I'm watching. So I can watch with one eye and then I can do my spiritual thing. Anyway, that thing, I mean, it's exactly like looking at the news. It's every minute is exciting, and it's got bombs, and it's got this, and it's got that. So then I go to sleep. Now I can see how it intervenes in my sleep state. Because the minute I go to sleep, I always do dream yoga before I go to sleep. So I try and awaken my mind before I go to sleep. But my mind is tainted by what I've seen on television. And I say to him every night, if you watch this late, if you come and watch this very late, stop it, Jackie. If you come and watch this late with me, I can't, because then it goes into my mind. We don't realize how much of what we see goes into our mind. And I know a couple of very spiritual people that say to me, I refuse to watch the news, because then it influences and taints my mind. But then I go, then how do you descend with the view if you don't know what's going on in the world? How can you make calls? How can you do everything? So you have to learn to actually attune your mind to what is happening, even when you are thick in samsara. And I think that the most important thing is the understanding. And then when we practice, we have a little glimpse of realization. Even if you're just reading one sentence of your practice and you go, oh, that's amazing. I can't believe that, I can't believe what this means. I've read that sentence 50 times and never understood it. Oh, that's called experiencing. And then a couple of those, and you go to realization. So let's all start with full understanding, like you heard Sharon saying, I've had this stuff for a long time, and suddenly something I was teaching in the Vajrasattva in the evening hit her an experience, and then suddenly she opens all of this, and now it has meaning for her. It's not, I'm not even anything in it. I'm just the catalyst to wake up. The beggar might be the catalyst to wake up. But we want to move from understanding to experiencing to realization. And once you have that, it's absolutely amazing, because then you definitely leave when you die. And I had this terrible near accident last week. I don't know how I'm still teaching you, because I was coming along and I couldn't see the ongoing traffic, and the robot had turned green, and I went like this, I went just across like that. I was driving because I'd come through the first green robot, and now the second one was green, so I wasn't stopping. And a guy decided, it must have been red on his side, I couldn't see, to just cut me off like that and go onto the highway. I don't actually know what happened, because I don't know how my feet went onto the brakes like that, because I wasn't anticipating anything like that. I shoved on the brakes so sharp that the whole car, the top went up like this, And I was totally shaken. The guy didn't even know he'd done it to me. I actually stopped. I must have stopped a half an inch in front of this guy. But had I gone one fraction past, I would have gone right into him like that. That would have been the end. And the whole day, I was actually thinking to myself, that wasn't supposed to be, but it could have been very, 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 very easily. And I suddenly thought, Melanie, are you really ready for death? if that happened and you were lying in the street, absolutely dead, and would you still be able to do all your things? Because you always think you're going to be sitting in your bed and you can take your mind out of your body. Would you be okay? And what I said to myself on Thursday, because it shook me the whole day, just internally, because I thought it was so easy for me to be gone, just like that. And I thought to myself, I really, really, really need to always be prepared for any eventuality, so that the minute I die, I take with me all the things that I know. I do not get into the crash and into everything that is there. And that's the important thing, because as you grow to know more and more and more, I don't know how that happened. I can only tell you that it was absolutely miraculous, because it shouldn't have happened, and it did. So obviously it wasn't my time to go, but the thing is, it's really very, very, very important for you to be ready. And that's why, if you grow in the understanding, and then you start to actually open to the bardos, you start to know, if I won't see the clear light as soon as I die, then I'll go into the second bardo, where I will see the 5 families and their entourages. And I must recognize. And I always say to myself, well, when I read the copper-colored mountain prayer, it says, may I, at the time of death, be fetched by the dakinis, just like Yeshe Tsogyal and Gunanatta, who was one of the female doctors. They were fetched by the dakinis to go off. Well, I go, well, I hope that I'll see the dakinis when I'm going, because if I don't, I'm going to have to really think. And if I die like that in an accident, then I've got to be even sharper than if I'm in the bed and I'm telling everyone, get out and let me focus and concentrate. Comments, questions, please. And then we'll do a meditation, because you can see the richness of what is in these verses, right, Bern? Can you see how much is in them? I mean, there is so much. The word profound realization. She's not just talking like we do, profound realization. She's saying, if you give me your blessing from the nature of mine, and if I in turn have the devotion and the offering, and I practice all the time, then may the two come together, and may I have profound realization, because you are already realized. So you just have to wake up to it. It's not like you have to go and fetch it somewhere. It's already there.
Mel, Ron wants to talk.
Please, Ron, I'll be so happy.
Mel, if I'm hearing correctly, and
Yes.
just been speaking about, then look at the positive side of it, and which is very difficult. I know, because I've been in that situation a few times. And what happens then, my experience then was to question, why did it happen? Why did it happen to me? What have I done, or whatever? Then it reached the point where I changed that, and I asked myself the question, what good can come out of this? And yet I'm thinking, the first car I ever had got smashed up in one day. You know, what good can come out of it? And then I started thinking differently. In other words, what good can come out of it? I can be grateful because of whatever my history was in my past embodiments. Yeah, it's come to a head. It's finalized. I can bless this as being a good sign that it's cleared some samsara out the way. And this is what came to my mind when you were telling this, what happened to you. It's a great shock, but at the same time, it may be the biggest blessing, because that aspect that is gone, it's finished, it's let go of. It's like the same little story, and I'm going to cut the story short, but just to remind you maybe, when this one person wanted to cross the river, as he had a terrible time there. So somebody told him, he said, there's a boat that's tied to a big tree. Now, if you get in the boat and you just row, you'll get to the other side, but don't look back until the sun shines. You can leave at midnight. So he leaves at midnight and he's rowing. And then the sun comes up, he turns around to look and he sees he's tied to a tree. He didn't cut the rope. So he's still free, he's stuck with it. And that's the story that comes to mind, that, yeah, you've cut it now. It's finished, it's gone, you're free.
Yeah, beautiful. And really, that is so true, because I think when you have near-death experiences like that,
Yeah.
it's a jolt. And obviously I was meant to have that jolt. And I know that I do not have that kind of instinct to actually slam on the brakes. So the brakes somehow was slammed on for me, and you have to look at it. That's where you go from understanding to experience, because, you know,
Yes.
death is tomorrow, it could be now, it could be in an hour's time. You haven't got time to think, now, what is it that I've got to do? You've got to know. And I was really, now I've looked so deeply at what happens if you die in an accident. You know, then you, if you die straight away, then you haven't got much time. You've got to really get out of it, and you've got to get out of it very quickly. So it's really important what you would do if you were in that situation. But thanks for that. And I think the cutting of the boat is so important, because, you know, if we can't stop fixating on everything, then what's the point? You know, what's the point of it? We are in samsara, and we fixate on samsara. But why can't we be in samsara, which we need to, because he says descend with the conduct, but still cut short what we do and how we do it, and bring your mind back to where it has to be, where you get the ascent of the view. I think it's really important that. Let's do a meditation, everybody. Just to get this, I'm just going to put this on. It's very quiet in my house now because my son's left. He doesn't, these townhouses, they built these modern places where the noise just reverberates everywhere, but not in my new house. So everybody, I want you to really breathe in. Breathe in to your beautiful nature of mind. I'll talk louder, Tati. And breathe out all the strings that your boat is attached to. Everything. I must get this done. I must get that done. Why is this one done to me? What's this one done to me? I'm so upset about this. I'm so angry about this. I wish this was different. Blah, 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 blah. On and on and on and on. All day long and all night long. If you look at your dream state, you'll see if you're still in the samsaric dreams, the dreams about your life, the dreams about your psyche. From the psyche, you move to the alaya, the substrate consciousness, where all your imprints are. The psyche is all our rubbish in this world. The imprints are a little bit deeper in the consciousness, or to the primordial consciousness, much deeper. And then none of these even exist. So if you dream samsaric dreams all the time, then you are focused on the boat that hasn't cut the string. So I want you today to just expand your whole mind as you breathe in, and all the channels. Breathe into the central channel and breathe out all these things we are connected to in samsara. Will this happen to me? Why am I angry? Just let them all go into the primordial consciousness. See them like waves in the ocean. The wave rises up, no matter how big it is, and it crashes back into the ocean. We don't have to do anything about it. We just let it dissolve. Or the rainbow. When the rainbow is in its beautiful, vivid color, and we'd like to go and get the pot of gold in the rainbow, at the end of the rainbow, but suddenly it dissolves. All the colors dissolve. There's nothing left of the rainbow. But if all the causes and conditions are there for the rainbow to manifest, it will manifest. But there's nothing tangible, nothing dualistic, nothing solid, nothing about you. A rainbow will manifest when the causes and conditions are there, but it will dissolve very quickly into its natural state. And so it is. That's how we move from understanding to experiencing to realization. Just for this moment, understand that you, within you, is the Maha Guru. Feel it in your heart. The Maha Guru, the being in you that really, really knows and understands. And allow it to start taking over your whole life. Have your aspiration to have perfect understanding of everything in your life. And once you understand, and you have that perfect understanding, then you are able to move into experiencing. Just look at your life over the weekend and think about how many times you understood or you even experienced something. Something dawned on you. May we experience the world not in its sorrowful state, which is our deluded perception, but in the pure state of the pure lands, of the interactions, of compassion, still deluded, still illusory, sorry, not deluded, illusory, but pure perception. From pure perception to being able to see things as they really are. That's the third stage of realization. Open your mind to every experience you have. Just don't hold on. Allow, surrender. All the problems you've got, all the finances you haven't got, all the things that are not working out. Just allow yourself to surrender. Each and every situation is perfect for your learning. If we stop analyzing it with absolute duality and seeing we want to get rid of it, just let it express. And the waves come back into the ocean. Just notice this morning how often you attach to things, how often you forget to cut the string of the boat. really understand that, you just open your hands and let it all be. Emaho, amazing, absolutely amazing. And just to give you the last teaching, and then you can ask if you want, you know, when we go to the next verse, which is about getting your body, speech, and mind purified by the Guru's body, speech, and mind, it starts to become very, very fascinating. Let's not read it now, Bern. We'll do it next time. It's too late. So I won't start that because that's a very, very, very big teaching. And I've got Tsogyal's teaching and I've got Tulku Urgent Rinpoche's teaching for you. But what he says, Tsogyal, is that we are like green tomatoes. Okay, we like green tomatoes. He says, and then he goes into a whole thing of if you want to make pomodoro, if you want to make, tomato sauces, he goes so detailed, and I go like I'm talking to him. I get it, but can you tell me some more rather than concentrating on the tomatoes? But he's got his way of teaching and everything, and he says, you are green tomatoes, but green tomatoes have to be ripened, okay? All you have to do is wait for the green tomato to ripen, and then you are a red tomato. But the fact that you are a green tomato is very important, he says, because you know that you can be ripened. Isn't that, it's a wonderful thing when you really think about it, because I think that how do we ripen? And the next verse, which talks about the creation, the development or the creation stage and the dissolution, is such an amazing verse where you get the body, speech, and mind. And I've got the most beautiful teaching on it, but I'd rather give it to you next time because it's too much in one go. But I really, really, really feel that if you know that you've got that, if you know that you've got that nature of mind, if you know that there is that pure nature, even if the tomato is green, you are entitled to the blessing is because you've got that nature of mind, and now you are becoming aware of it, so you are able to get the blessing. Do you all understand that? It's really important, because I love it when he goes, well, if you are the Duke of Nottingham's, let's say, daughter, then you're going to become the Duchess of Nottingham, and you're going to get his territory and his money and everything. You have the right to inherit everything about your nature. It's really important to know that, especially when you feel lousy about yourself. Any comments, any questions? I don't want to start this because it's a whole big teaching. I've got all these beautiful articles and everything. I've got it all over my lap here. But I don't want to start that teaching because it's, it is the time up. And I think otherwise, if anybody wants to say anything, please do. And then we'll dedicate and then we'll go. Please.
I want to ask you, these teachings you're talking about Tulku Urgent, is there any particular text or book?
Lots. I mean, I've got every single book. Okay, one of them that is really wonderful is called Rainbow Painting. And that's got many of his amazing articles. And another one is called Vajra Heart Revisited, for those of you that are avid readers. And he's got so many articles, and you should see these books. I'm disgusting because I underline and I write in the book and everything. And then I think, so if I did die and all of you wanted to come and get my books, you're going to get all my underlining. And all my comments are in the book because I have to do that for teaching. I can't write everything out anymore too much, too many notes. And Bern, you'll have to take a trip to South Africa and burn all the notes for me. I don't know. Because, you know, they're just boxes and boxes of notes. And I got rid of so much when I moved out of my house, but now I don't know what to do. But yet when I'm teaching, it's wonderful because then I can go there and find it. So I've got all photocopied articles of Tulku Urgent Rinpoche, and I've got my notes, and I've got my old lectures and all sorts of things. So it's wonderful when it comes to Yeshe Tsogyal's prayer, because, you know, when we come next time to the creation and the dissolution, there are such beautiful teachings on this, and Zongsa gives a few, but it's very brief, his teaching, unfortunately. And even he says he's not sure he did justice to the prayer because it's so deep and so profound. So let's dedicate, and then I'll stay if anybody's got anything they need to do. There's a lot to digest here, but as he says, it's the A to Z of the Dharma. And so that's what we really need, the A to Z of the Dharma. So let's dedicate to all sentient beings, all of them who are going through terrible time, the wars, the drones that are killing people in Kiev, in Gaza, in everywhere. These two young people who were shot at the Israeli embassy in cold blood. We dedicate everything. If they can just get 1 iota of merit from these teachings and from what Yeshe Tsogyal, the dharmas that she really put into the ground, into people, into the oceans, into rivers, that we could all find them. We dedicate that merit to every single suffering being, sentient being, the ants, the insects, the butterflies, the dogs, everybody. Through this merit, may all sentient beings attain omniscience. May all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam die tamche zibane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana jibala tropae sipe sole doa dro warsho. I think this